What's going on, guys? I'm back with another 31 Days of Halloween review, and today we're going to be doing a slasher classic, Nightmare on Elm Street. In Wes Craven's classic slasher film, several Midwestern teenagers fall prey to Freddy Krueger, a disfigured midnight mangler who preys on these teenagers in their dreams, which, in turn, kills them in reality. After investigating the phenomenon, Nancy begins to suspect that a dark secret kept by her and her friend's parents may be the key to unraveling the mystery, but can Nancy and her boyfriend Glenn solve the puzzle before it's too late? Alright, first things first. You're gonna have to tip your cap to Wes Craven for not only creating one of the best psychological horror and slasher films of all time, but also a film that will stick with everyone forever all for just one watch. Nightmare on Elm Street is such an influential and fresh concept where this film is quite literally what nightmares are made out of. Nightmare on Elm Street doesn't just succeed on its premise, but also many other things like its relatability, the undertones, the filmmaking itself, and much, much more. When it comes to the story, the film wastes very little to no time establishing their characters, and also a taste of this twisted story that's to come. The first act does a great job setting up this very dark and unsettling tone, coupled with some clever undertones as well, with Freddy's character, where there's more to the film than what's at face value. Nightmare on Elm Street is a fairly fast-paced film, where some ideas just fly right by, but it's all necessary information we need to thicken the plot and move it forward. During the first 20 minutes or so, you're already introduced to a twist, where it does a great job building great tension through the second act, with its multiple conflicts with Freddy, but also the adults in the film, so when the third act finally comes, it comes to an amazing climax. What this film does very well was give us multiple conflicts. Of course, our main one is Freddy in the dream world, where you can't outrun him because people obviously need to sleep at some point, but there's also the battle with the oblivious adults in the real world who act as antagonists in themselves, where our lead can't escape conflicts whether she's awake or sleeping. Very clever stuff. To back onto that point, Wes Craven does an amazing job blending real life with the dream sequences, where most of the time, you can't really tell which is which. Some may find that to be a problem, but for me, I see it as almost another layer to unfold as you go further into the runtime. My next positive of the film is most of the characters, but more so Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. We've had iconic characters before, like Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and Robert Englund definitely fits that bill when it comes to him playing Freddy. You just can't really picture anybody else playing the role, and when they finally did recast later on in the franchise, it just didn't really feel as good as the original. Krueger broke down so many barriers in this role, whereas slasher films didn't really have a handful of dialogue between all of them, where Freddy was a pretty vocal character for the minimal amount of screen time that he did have. He definitely had a bit of wit and comedy to him, more so being dark, and only getting darker as the film progressed. Just the mannerisms he brings to the character sells it that much more, whether it's the smirk, licking his teeth, sticking his tongue out, making a creepy face, the way he runs, and everything else in between. It really just enhances the character that much more. Although the way he plays the character makes it his own, the character wouldn't be who he is without his trademark look, with the red and green striped sweater, the burnt skin, in which the makeup was very well done, may I add, his knife hand, and his fedora. The character design is so iconic, you still see people to this day doing it for Halloween. Outside of Freddy, I thought our main protagonist in Nancy, played by Heather Langenkamp, was pretty dang solid. She wasn't just a one-note wooden cutout. She had some decent growth, started off being a vulnerable and scared, then turned into a fairly confident and brave heroine that was pretty easy to root for. The side characters in the first half of the movie, they were just fine. We needed them to facilitate the plot and boost Freddy's cred, but they were nothing super special besides Johnny Depp as Glenn Lance. Maybe it's just a bit of bias knowing where he is now, but I thought he was one of the better actors in the entire film, doing a great job with what he was given. My next positive was the action. For a slasher, there wasn't a tremendous amount of kills, with there being a lack of characters at that, but the kills we did get were top of the line and really made up for the lack of them. I thought they were very well handled, being super creative and very violent. They weren't just senseless kills to boost Freddy, they all had some merit to every single one of them, making everything look like a who's-done-it situation for the most part. I've always found that pretty creative as well. And my last positive was the technical aspects, including the score, cinematography, effects, and production design. Although simple at times, I thought the production design was pretty neat, certainly serving the purpose they were going for, where they had some really cool set pieces and overall cool sets to the boiler room, steaming and leaking pipes, some subtle smoke screens, etc., while using the cinematography to enhance the feeling the production was going for. The cinematography was also well handled, using these great shades of reds and blues and dim colors often in the film to set this very unsettling tone, while also using good natural shadows to make Freddy appear more mysterious. The effects, again, were also handled pretty well for the most part. There definitely were some bits that aged like milk, but mostly the practical effects landed well alongside some pretty cool special effects as well. And lastly, but surely not least, the score. Man, this score is so iconic in every sense of the word, where at some points it'll have this high-pitched noise complemented well with the iconic melody, and then another scene it will be different, but similar enough to continue the eerie tone they were going for. Although there's tons to praise about this film, there are definitely some things that get in the way for making this the best slasher film of all time, starting with the characters. When it comes to the adults, they're just so damn oblivious to the point it's almost so frustrating. Then when it comes to the side characters, as mentioned, sometimes they come off pretty one note, where it's even hard to half root for them, where they're pretty disposable. To backpack on my character negative, I do have an issue with Freddy. I did find his powers to be a bit inconsistent at times, where he'll get caught tussling with a little girl, or simply getting outsmarted by one. It made his menace feel a little bit uneven. And the last thing on the characters, outside of Robert Englund of course, the acting as a whole ranged from decent to pretty bad. Mostly being pretty bad. It seemed like the direction was set for Nancy to be overtired and the mom to be neglectful, but not much of it came off genuine. Maybe it was an acting issue, but it just didn't land hard for me. Outside of some nitpicks with the script and technical aspects, my last issue was the ending. The original ending they had was nearly perfect. Although feeling a bit rushed, but to add on to that, they basically added an extra 2 minutes or so that basically rewrote the entire movie, not leaving a very desired taste in my mouth personally. Overall, Nightmare on Elm Street is a banger. Most definitely one of the best of its kind and deserves all the praise in the world. Although it doesn't have too many negatives, I almost want to give it a 7 out of 10 just because how poor the issues are, but because it's such an influential classic, I'm going to give it the 8 out of 10. Let me know what you think of Nightmare on Elm Street in the comments below, and let me know what film you want to see me review next. See you guys in the next one.